The massive doors of the Galactic court slid open with a deep hum that made Lideho's bones vibrate. He stepped through the entrance and stopped, his mouth falling open despite his best efforts to stay calm. The courtroom was huge beyond anything he had ever seen. The ceiling stretched so high above them that it disappeared into darkness. Giant pillars made of some kind of glowing crystal held up the enormous space. Lee adjusted his simple black suit and straightened his tie. Behind him, Dr. Park So-min clutched her tablet computer tighter, her eyes wide as she looked around the room. Captain Kim Tae-woo walked with perfect military posture, but even he seemed small in this place built for giants. "Stay close," Lee whispered to his team, "and remember what we practiced." The three humans walked down a long pathway toward the center of the courtroom. On both sides, massive seats rose up like a stadium. Most of the seats were empty, but the ones that were filled held creatures that looked nothing like humans. Some were tall and thin with too many arms. Others glowed with their own light. A few looked like they were made of living gas, floating in special containers. At the front of the room sat the biggest chair of all. In it was Chancellor Crickstall, the leader of the Galactic Court. The Chancellor looked like a giant lizard that walked on two legs. His skin was dark green and covered in scales that caught the light. 4 yellow eyes looked down at the humans as they approached. When he opened his mouth to speak, Lee could see rows of sharp teeth. "So," Chancellor Crickstall said, his voice booming through the courtroom, "these are the humans we have heard about." Laughter rippled through the filled seats. It was not kind laughter. Lee felt his cheeks get hot, but he kept walking forward. They had known this would happen. The humans took their places at a small table near the front. The table and chairs were the only things in the room built for beings their size. Everything else was made for creatures much larger than humans. Lee had to look up to see the other representatives in the case. To his left sat the delegation from the hegemony of Malder. General Vexter was their leader, a creature that stood 3 meters tall. His body was covered in thick armor that looked like it grew from his skin. His head was shaped like a triangle, with small red eyes and no nose that Lee could see. When he moved, the armor plates made clicking sounds. On the right side were the Zephyrians. High Resonance Tisara was their speaker, and she looked like she was made of living crystal. Light moved through her body in patterns that hurt to look at directly. When she spoke, her voice sounded like music, but cold music that made Lee think of winter. Behind them floated the Nebuloid Commonwealth's representative. Lee could not pronounce its name, so he just thought of it as the cloud. The cloud was exactly a thinking cloud of gas held inside a clear container. Different colors swirled through the gas. When it was thinking or feeling something, Chancellor Crickstall hit his gavel on the bench. The sound was like thunder. "We are here to decide the matter of territorial dispute 7749 Alpha, the system you humans call Kepler 442. Lee's heart began to beat faster. This was it. The system they were fighting over had 5 planets and was rich in minerals that all the alien races wanted. It was also the perfect place for humans to build their first colony outside their own solar system. General Vexter stood up first. When he moved, his armor clicked and scraped. "The hegemony of Malder discovered this system 800 cycles ago. Our explorer ships were the first to map its planets and study its resources. By right of first discovery, it belongs to us." The general touched something on his armor, and a hologram appeared in the air above the courtroom. It showed star maps and pictures of alien ships near the disputed system. The images were sharp and clear, much better than anything humans could make. High Resonance Tisara rose next, her crystal body singing softly. "The Zephyrian Collective claims this system by right of biological compatibility. Our scientists have studied the life forms there. The genetic patterns match our own biology. We can live there without changing the environment. It is our natural home." Her hologram showed complex charts about DNA and evolution. The patterns were beautiful, but impossible for Lee to understand. Dr. Park So-min leaned forward, trying to follow the alien science. The cloud spoke last, its gas swirling faster as it became excited. The Nebuloid Commonwealth has invested significant resources in economic development of this system. We have mining rights established 600 cycles ago. Our energy investment gives us legal claim. Its hologram showed spreadsheets and economic data that made Lee's head spin. Numbers and alien languages scrolled past faster than he could read. When all three had finished, Chancellor Crickstal turned his 4 eyes toward the human table. And what does Earth have to say about this matter? Lee stood up slowly. He felt very small in the huge room. The alien eyes watching him made his skin crawl, but he had a job to do. Your Honor, Lee said, his voice sounding tiny in the vast space. Earth respectfully requests the right to present our claim to the Kepler 442 system. The courtroom exploded in laughter. General Vexler's armor clinked as he shook with amusement. High-resonance Tizara's crystal body rang like wind chimes. Even the cloud's gas changed to a bright yellow color that Dr. Park So-min had learned meant the nebuloids found something funny. Your claim? General Vexler said between laughs. You barely learned to leave your own planet. What could you possibly claim? Your species has existed for what, a few thousand years? High-resonance Tizara's musical voice was full of mockery. We have been traveling the stars since before your son was born. The cloud's gas turned orange with excitement. Economic claim requires actual investment. What have you invested, little humans, wishes and dreams? Chancellor Crickstal hit his gavel again, but Lee could see he was trying not to smile. The court will hear Earth's claim, as is proper under galactic law, though I suspect it will be. Brief, more laughter filled the room. Lee sat back down, his face red with embarrassment. Dr. Park So-min reached over and squeezed his hand under the table. Don't let them get to you, she whispered. We knew this would happen. Captain Kim Tae-woo leaned forward slightly. Sir, they're not taking us seriously at all. Lee had nodded, but inside he was smiling. That's exactly what I was counting on, Captain. The Chancellor set the schedule for the next session, when each side would present their evidence in detail. The aliens continued to joke among themselves as they prepared to leave. The humans were clearly just a funny addition to what they thought would be a simple case between real civilizations. As they walked out of the enormous courtroom, Lee could hear the aliens still laughing behind them. General Vexler was explaining something about primitive chemical-based life forms to high-resonance Tizara. The cloud had turned a bright pink color that meant it was very amused. Outside the courtroom, Dr. Park So-min finally spoke. That was awful. They think we're a joke. They think we're stupid, Captain Kim added. Lee straightened his tie and picked up his simple briefcase. Inside were documents that the aliens had not seen yet, papers that would change everything. Let them laugh, he said quietly. Let them think we don't belong here. When we're done, they'll understand that humans have been preparing for this moment longer than they could possibly imagine. He looked back at the massive doors of the Galactic Court. Tomorrow the real case would begin. Tomorrow the aliens would learn what it meant to underestimate humanity. The 3 humans walked toward their small ship, past creatures from dozens of worlds who paid them no attention. They were just another young species trying to play in the big leagues. What none of the aliens knew was that humanity had been watching, learning and preparing for this day since long before they had ever left Earth. The laughter would stop soon enough. The second day in the Galactic Court started the same way as the first. Lee Dae-ho and his team walked through the massive doors, past the towering aliens who barely looked at them. The humans took their seats at the small table while the real players in this case prepared their presentations. Chancellor Crickstal's 4 yellow eyes swept across the courtroom. His voice boomed like thunder when he spoke. Today we will hear detailed evidence from each claimant. General Vexler, you may begin. The Malthurian general stood up, his armor plates clicking together. He was even more impressive today, wearing a full ceremonial uniform that glowed with its own light. When he moved to the center of the courtroom, the floor itself seemed to bend under his weight. Honored Chancellor, distinguished beings of the court, General Vexler began, his voice deep and commanding. The hegemony of Malthur has dominated space for over 3,000 cycles. We have explored more systems than any other race. We have built the largest fleet in the galaxy. The general touched a control on his armor, and the air above the courtroom filled with light. A hologram appeared that was so real Lee felt like he could reach out and touch it. It showed the disputed star system in perfect detail, with each planet rotating slowly in the darkness of space. 800 cycles ago, our exploration vessel, Conqueror of Stars, entered this system, the general continued. We were the first intelligent life to set foot on these worlds. We mapped every planet, every moon, every asteroid. We studied the local life forms and cataloged the mineral resources. The hologram changed to show massive Malthurian ships moving through space. The ships were beautiful and terrible at the same time, covered in weapons and thick armor. They moved like predators hunting through the darkness. Our surveys found rich deposits of rare minerals on the fourth planet. Crystalline formations that could power our cities for centuries. Gas giants with atmospheric compositions perfect for our manufacturing processes. This system can supply the hegemony for generations. Lee watched the presentation with growing worry. The Malthurian evidence was impressive. They're holographic. Technology was far beyond anything humans could create. The detail in their maps and surveys made Earth's best space telescopes look like toys, General Wexler gestured, and the hologram showed Malthurian soldiers planting flags on alien worlds. By right of discovery, by right of exploration, by right of superior technology, this system belongs to the hegemony of Malthur. The alien audience made sounds of approval. Even Chancellor Krickstall nodded his massive head. The general's presentation was powerful and convincing. Thank you, General, the Chancellor said. High Resonance Tisara, you may present for the Zephyrian Collective. The crystal being rose from her seat, light dancing through her transparent body. When she moved to the center of the courtroom, she left trails of soft music in the air. Her voice was like a song, but cold and distant. Honored Chancellor, the Zephyrian Collective does not claim this system by conquest, but by natural right. We are beings of pure energy and crystalline structure. We seek not to dominate, but to live in harmony with the universe. Her hologram was different from the general's. Instead of ships and weapons, it showed flowing patterns of light and energy. Beautiful, complex designs that seemed to dance in the air. Our scientists have studied the life forms in this system for 700 cycles. The genetic patterns of the native organisms match our own energy signatures. The crystal formations on the third planet resonate with our natural frequencies. This is not just a place we can live, it is a place we are meant to live. The hologram showed Zephyrian scientists working with strange alien plants and animals. The creatures seemed to glow with the same inner light as the Zephyrians themselves. It was like watching a nature documentary from another dimension. We do not seek to strip mine these worlds or build weapons factories. We wish to become part of the ecosystem, to add our own harmony to the natural song of these planets. This system calls to us across the emptiness of space. Dr. Park So-min leaned forward at their table, fascinated despite herself. The Zephyrian science was incredible. Their understanding of biology and energy was centuries ahead of human knowledge. High Resonance Tisara concluded her presentation with a display of genetic charts that looked like works of art. By right of biological compatibility, by right of natural harmony, by right of scientific understanding, this system belongs with the Zephyrian Collective. More sounds of approval from the audience. The Zephyrian case was as different from the Malthurian one as possible, but just as convincing in its own way. Chancellor Krickstall turned toward the floating gas container. And now we will hear from the Nebuloid Commonwealth. The cloud's gas swirled faster, changing from blue to green to purple as it prepared to speak. When it did, its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once, filling the huge courtroom. Honored Chancellor, the Nebuloid Commonwealth approaches this matter from a perspective of economic reality. We are traders and builders. We create wealth and prosperity wherever we go. The cloud's hologram was all numbers and charts, but somehow they were beautiful too. Economic data flowed through the air like a river of information, showing trade routes and resource flows across the galaxy. 600 cycles ago, we established mining rights in this system through proper legal channels. We have invested billions of energy credits in survey equipment, automated mining platforms, and processing facilities. Our economic development has created jobs for dozens of species across multiple star systems. The hologram showed massive mining operations on asteroid belts and the outer planets of the system. Nebuloid facilities that looked like glowing soap bubbles, but were clearly advanced technology beyond human understanding. We have brought civilization to an empty system. Where there was only rock and gas, we have built commerce and industry. The rare minerals we extract supply medical technology that saves lives across the galaxy. The energy sources we develop power colonies on 100 worlds. Captain Kim Tae-woo made notes on his tablet trying to understand the alien economics. The numbers were staggering. The Nebuloids had invested more money in this one system than Earth's entire gross planetary product. By right of economic investment, by right of legal development permits, by right of job creation and galactic commerce, this system belongs with the Nebuloid Commonwealth. The presentation ended with a display of the system as it would look under full Nebuloid development. Efficient, productive, profitable. A model of what advanced civilization could accomplish, Chancellor Krikstal looked pleased with all three presentations. Each alien race had made a strong case with evidence that was far beyond human capabilities. The court began to buzz with quiet conversations as aliens discussed what they had seen. And now, the Chancellor said, turning his four eyes toward the human table, we will hear from Earth. The buzzing stopped. The huge courtroom became very quiet. Lee could feel hundreds of alien eyes watching him as he stood up. His simple black suit looked shabby compared to the advanced technology and beautiful presentations he had just witnessed. Lee walked to the center of the courtroom, carrying only a small tablet computer and a briefcase. He looked tiny in the vast space, like a child trying to speak to adults. Your Honor, Lee began, his voice barely carrying in the enormous room. Earth thanks the court for this opportunity to present our case. Someone in the audience made a sound that might have been a laugh. Lee ignored it and opened his briefcase. Humanity claims the Kepler 442 system based on our long observation and study of these worlds. We have been watching this system for over 100 Earth years. More laughter from the audience. General Vexler's armor clinked as he shook his head. Watching from light years away with primitive telescopes, he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. How impressive. Lee pulled out a stack of papers from his briefcase. Real paper, not holograms or energy displays. Just simple documents printed with ink. These are our observation records dating back to 2157, star charts, planetary studies, atmospheric analysis, all conducted from Earth. High-resonance Tisara-S crystal body rang with musical laughter. Atmospheric analysis from another star system? With your chemical-based technology, surely you cannot be serious. The cloud turned bright yellow with amusement. Economic development requires actual presence and investment. What have you invested besides wishful thinking? Lee activated his tablet computer. The hologram that appeared was crude compared to the alien displays. The images were grainy and simple, clearly made with inferior technology. It showed the disputed star system, but the pictures looked like they had been taken with an old camera. Dr. Park So-min will present our biological surveys of the system. Lee said. Dr. Park stood up, her hands shaking slightly as she held her own tablet. She was a small woman, and in the massive courtroom she looked like a child giving a school report. We have conducted spectroscopic analysis of the atmospheres of all 5 planets in the system, she began nervously. Our studies show that the 2nd and 4th planets have oxygen-rich atmospheres suitable for carbon-based life forms. General Vexler interrupted her. Child, we have actual samples from those worlds. We have walked on their surfaces and breathed their air. Your spectroscopic analysis. The silence in the galactic court stretched on like a held breath. Lee Dae-ho stood in the center of the massive room, no longer looking small or out of place. Something had changed in his posture, in the way he held himself. The nervous, overwhelmed diplomat from the first 2 days was gone. In his place stood someone who looked very sure of himself. Chancellor Crickstall's 4 yellow eyes fixed on Lee with new attention. Ambassador Lee, please explain what you mean by watching that system. Lee opened his simple briefcase and pulled out more papers. Real paper documents that looked almost primitive compared to the holograms and energy displays the aliens used. But there was something about the way he handled them that made the entire courtroom pay attention. Your Honor, distinguished representatives, I must apologize for our earlier presentations. We were not being completely honest with you. Lee's voice was different now, stronger, more confident. We were testing something. General Vexler's armor began to click as he shifted uncomfortably. Testing what, human? We were testing whether you had done your homework before making your claims. Lee activated his tablet and his crude hologram appeared again. But this time, instead of grainy pictures, it showed something else. Dr. Park, would you please show the court our real data? Dr. Park So-min stood up, and she was different too. The nervous scientist was gone. In her place was someone who knew exactly what she was doing. She touched her tablet, and suddenly the human hologram changed completely. The new display was still not as advanced as alien technology, but it was much more detailed than anything they had shown before. It showed the disputed star system, but with overlays of data that made the alien representatives lean forward to see better. Ladies, gentlemen, and distinguished beings, Dr. Park began, her voice steady and clear. Earth has been conducting systematic observation of the Kepler 442 system for 127 Earth years. That translates to 89 galactic standard cycles. High-resonance Tizara's crystal body made a sharp sound like breaking glass. Impossible. You could not have meaningful data from such distances with primitive technology. Dr. Park smiled. You're right that our technology is primitive compared to yours, but you're wrong about what we can do with it. We humans have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. When you can't travel to the stars, you get very good at watching them. The hologram showed Earth's solar system, with lines of light reaching out toward distant stars. We built a network of space telescopes and monitoring stations throughout our solar system, each one designed to watch specific star systems that we thought might be important someday. Captain Kim Tae-woo stood up, his military bearing perfect. The Deep Space Monitoring Network was established in 2157, shortly after we achieved faster-than-light communication. We couldn't travel to other stars yet, but we could watch them and send information instantly back to Earth. The hologram changed to show the Kepler 442 system in detail. Much more detail than the humans had revealed before. Planetary orbits, asteroid belts, even the positions of comets were marked with precise accuracy. Our observations show every major event in that system for the past 89 cycles, Dr. Park continued, including the arrival of the first alien expedition. Chancellor Crickstall leaned forward, his massive form casting shadows across the courtroom. Are you saying you observed the arrival of these civilizations? Lee stepped forward again, and now his smile was sharp as a knife. We're not saying it, Your Honor, we're proving it. The human hologram changed again. This time it showed something that made the alien representatives gasp. It was a recording of ships entering the Kepler 442 system. Alien ships. Malthorian ships. General Vexler, Lee said, his voice cutting through the silence. Your expedition arrived in the system on Galactic date 7.442, 156. That was 112 cycles ago. Not 800 as you claimed. The general's armor clicked rapidly as he stood up. That is impossible. Our records clearly show ... Your records show when you first began planning expeditions to that region of space? Lee interrupted. But our observations show when you actually arrived. We have recordings of your ships entering the system, conducting their surveys, and leaving. The hologram showed more detail. Malthorian vessels moving through space, landing on planets, taking samples, all recorded from billions of kilometers away by human instruments that the aliens had dismissed as primitive. Furthermore, Lee continued, Our records show that your initial survey missed the richest mineral deposits on the fourth planet. You didn't discover those until your third expedition, 47 cycles ago. General Vexer's red eyes burned with anger, but he said nothing. He could not deny what the entire court was seeing. Lee turned toward the Zephyrian representative. High Resonance Tisara, your people arrived in the system 78 cycles ago, not 700. Your first genetic sampling mission was conducted on Galactic date 7.611203. The crystal being's light flickered like a candle in the wind. How could you possibly know such specific details? Dr. Park answered, because we recorded everything. Every ship that entered that system, every landing, every sample collection, every mining operation. We have been the system's unofficial historians for nearly a century. The hologram showed Zephyrian science vessels, their crystal hulls gleaming as they moved between planets. It showed their scientists working with alien life forms, their attempts to understand the local ecosystem. Your biological compatibility studies are impressive, Dr. Park continued. But our long-term observations show that your energy signatures actually disrupt the native life forms after extended exposure. The plants you thought were responding positively to your presence were actually showing signs of stress. High-resonance Tisara's music became discordant, like an orchestra playing out of tune. That cannot be correct. Our science is advanced beyond your understanding. Your science is indeed advanced, Lee agreed. But our observations are longer and more complete. We've been watching those life forms for decades. You've been studying them for a few years. Now Lee turned to the floating gas container holding the nebuloid representative and the nebuloid commonwealth. Your economic development began 64 cycles ago, not 600. The cloud's gas swirled in agitated patterns, cycling through colors that Dr. Park recognized as extreme distress. Our investment records are clear and legally documented. Captain Kim Tae-woo stepped forward with military precision. Your investment records show when you filed the paperwork. Our observations show when you actually began operations. There's a significant difference. The hologram displayed nebuloid mining facilities being constructed on asteroids and outer planets. The images were clear enough to show individual pieces of equipment being installed. Your economic development has been impressive, Lee acknowledged. But it all happened after humanity had already established our legal claim to the system. Chancellor. Crickstall's voice was like distant thunder. Ambassador Lee, are you claiming that Earth established a legal claim to this system before any of these civilizations arrived there? That's exactly what I'm claiming, Your Honor. Lee reached into his briefcase one more time and pulled out a document that was clearly very old. The paper was yellowed with age, but the text was still readable. This is United Nations Space Command Document 2157442, filed on Earth date March 15, 2157. It establishes humanity's territorial claim to the Kepler 442 system, under Earth maritime law adapted for space exploration. The courtroom erupted in noise. Aliens shouted in languages that the human translation devices could not handle. General Vexler's armor clanked as he stood up quickly. High-resonance Tisara's crystal body rang like a bell being struck. The cloud turned color so rapidly. It looked like a rainbow having a seizure. Chancellor Crickstall pounded his gavel, the sound echoing through the vast chamber. Order! Order in this court! When the noise died down, the Chancellor looked at the old document Lee was holding. Ambassador, even if this document is genuine, a claim made from another star system hardly constitutes legal ownership. Lee's smile returned, and this time it was almost predatory. Under Earth law, it does, and under Galactic law, it should as well. He gestured to Dr. Park, who activated another display. This one showed legal documents and treaty texts. Article 127. Section 4 of the Galactic Maritime Code states that territorial claims established under legitimate legal frameworks and maintained through continuous observation are valid, regardless of the claiming party's physical presence, provided no prior claims exist. The Chancellor's scales shifted color as he accessed his own legal databases. His 4 eyes widened as he read. This article exists to protect the rights of species that cannot physically travel to claimed territories due to biological or technological limitations. Exactly, Lee said. In 2157, humanity could not travel to other star systems. But we could observe them, study them, and legally claim them under our own maritime law. Maritime law that has been recognized as legitimate by the Galactic Confederation in 17 previous cases. Dr. Park added more information to the display. Our claim was filed properly under Earth law, registered with our planetary government, and maintained through continuous observation for 127 years. The fourth day in the Galactic Court felt different from the moment Lee Dae-ho and his team walked through the massive doors. The laughter was gone. The casual dismissal had vanished. Aliens who had barely looked at the humans before now watched. Their every move with careful attention. The three humans took their seats at the small table, but they no longer looked out of place. Lee straightened his simple black tie and opened his briefcase with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what was inside. Dr. Park. Somin checked her tablet with the focused attention of a scientist presenting critical data. Captain Kim. Tae-woo sat with perfect military posture, alert and ready, across the courtroom. The alien representatives looked very different than they had 3 days ago. General Vexler's armor was still impressive, but he kept shifting in his seat, the clicking sounds more frequent and agitated. High-resonance Tisara's crystal body flickered with unstable light patterns, like a radio not quite tuned to the right station. The nebuloid Commonwealth's representative had changed from its usual calm blue to an anxious purple, the gas swirling in tight, worried circles. Chancellor Kriegstall entered the courtroom, his 4 yellow eyes immediately focusing on the human table. When he took his massive seat, the sound of his movements seemed louder than usual in the tense silence. This court has spent considerable time reviewing the evidence presented yesterday. The Chancellor began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. The legal questions raised are complex and unprecedented. He gestured toward Lee with one of his large, clawed hands. Ambassador Lee, before we proceed to deliberation, this court requires clarification on several points. Please approach. Lee stood and walked to the center of the courtroom. He moved with the same calm confidence he had shown the day before, but now every alien in the room was paying complete attention. Ambassador, Chancellor Kriegstall said, you claim that Earth established legal ownership of the Kepler-442 system through distant observation and documentation. This court needs to understand the full scope of your evidence. Lee nodded. Of course, Your Honor. Dr. Park, would you please present our complete observational record? Dr. Park activated her tablet, and the human hologram appeared in the air above the courtroom. This time, however, the display was far more comprehensive than anything they had shown before. Your Honor, Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Network consists of 47 observation stations positioned throughout our solar system. Each station is equipped with advanced telescopes, sensors, and communication equipment. The hologram showed the human solar system with glowing dots marking each observation station. Lines of light connected them to form a web of surveillance that covered a significant portion of local space. These stations have been continuously monitoring the Kepler-442 system for 127 years. We have recorded every significant event, every visitor, every change in the system during that entire time. General Vexler could not stay quiet. Even if this is true, monitoring from such distances cannot provide the detailed information needed for legal claims. Dr. Park smiled. General, you're thinking like someone who has always had faster-than-light travel. When you can't go somewhere, you get very creative about watching it. The hologram changed to show a detailed view of the disputed system, but this wasn't just a map, it was a living record. The display showed the movement of planets and moons over decades, the formation and dissolution of asteroid clouds, even the birth and death of comets. Our observations include spectroscopic analysis of all planetary atmospheres, updated continuously for over a century. Gravitational measurements that detected the presence of mineral deposits below planetary surfaces. Thermal imaging that mapped geological activity. Electromagnetic monitoring that cataloged every energy source in the system. High-resonance Tizara's crystal body rang with a discordant note. Impossible. Such detailed analysis from interstellar distances would require technology beyond even our capabilities. Captain Kim Tae-woo stood up. Ma'am, you're thinking about this wrong. You have advanced technology that lets you travel anywhere quickly. We had to develop different advanced technology that lets us see everything from far away. The hologram showed technical specifications for the human monitoring equipment. The aliens leaned forward to study the designs, their expressions changing as they realized the sophistication involved. Humans spent over a century perfecting long-range observation techniques, Captain Kim continued. When you can't visit a place, you learn to study it better than the people who can. Lee gestured to the display. But the most important part of our evidence is not just what we observed, but when we observed it. The hologram shifted to show a timeline stretching back over a century. Points of light marked significant events in the system's history. Earth established its legal claim to the system on March 15, 2157. For the next 43 years, our observations showed no signs of intelligent activity in the system. No ships, no artificial structures, no energy signatures that would indicate alien presence. A new section of the timeline began to glow. On Galactic date 7.442-156, our instruments detected the first artificial energy signatures entering the system. 3 large vessels with power sources consistent with Malthurian technology. General Vexler S. armor clicked rapidly. How could you possibly identify our technology from such distances? Dr. Park answered, General, every species has a unique energy signature. Your fusion reactors produce a specific pattern of radiation. Zephyrian crystal-based power systems create their own distinctive emissions. Nebuloid gas state energy conversion has a particular electromagnetic fingerprint. We've been studying and cataloging these signatures for decades. The timeline continued to play out, showing each alien expedition as it arrived in the system. The Malthurian surveys, the Zephyrian biological studies, the nebuloid mining operations. All of it recorded in perfect detail by human instruments that the aliens had dismissed as primitive. Every claim made by the other parties occurred after Earth's legal establishment of territorial rights, Lee said clearly. Every survey, every sample collection, every mining operation was conducted on human territory without permission. The cloud finally managed to speak, its gas swirling in agitated patterns. But legal claims must be enforceable. How can a species enforce territorial rights from light years away? Lee's smile was sharp. The same way any government enforces territorial rights through legal documentation, continuous monitoring, and diplomatic action when necessary. He gestured to Captain Kim. Captain, would you please explain our enforcement capabilities? Captain. Kim activated his own display, showing a different view of the human solar system. This time, the view highlighted not just observation stations, but defensive installations. Earth's deep space monitoring network serves dual purposes. We watch and we protect. Each observation station is equipped with long-range communication. Arrays capable of real-time coordination with Earth's space defense forces. The display showed the network's communication capabilities. Instant connection between any point in the system and Earth's military command. While we may not have been able to physically travel to the Kepler 442 system until recently, we have maintained continuous legal and administrative presence through our monitoring network. Every event in that system has been documented, filed, and archived according to proper legal procedures. Chancellor Crickstall was studying his own displays, accessing galactic legal databases. Ambassador Lee, are you claiming that Earth has maintained what amounts to a virtual embassy in this disputed system? That's exactly what we're claiming. Your Honor, our monitoring stations serve as remote diplomatic and administrative posts. They observe, record, and report on all activities within human territorial claims. Dr. Park added more technical details. Our stations maintain continuous communication with Earth's foreign ministry. Every alien expedition that entered the system was reported to proper authorities within hours of detection. Earth's government has been aware of all activities in our territory for decades. High-resonance Tizara-S light patterns became more stable as she processed this information. You are saying that your government knew about our research missions? We knew about all of your missions, Lee confirmed. The question is why none of you bothered to contact us before entering our territory. General Vexler's red eyes burned with anger. Your territory? You had never set foot in that system? Neither had you when you first claimed it, General. You sent unmanned probes first, just like we did. The difference is that we established legal claim before anyone arrived, while you assumed an empty system belonged to whoever showed up first. The Chancellor was quiet for several minutes, reviewing legal precedents on his displays. Finally, he looked up at the human delegation. Ambassador Lee, this court has found precedent for territorial claims established through continuous remote observation. The case of Endorian Mining Consortium versus the Tellarite Republic, decided 347 cycles ago, established that physical presence is not required for legitimate territorial claims if proper legal procedures are followed and maintained. Lee nodded. We studied that case extensively, Your Honor. It was one of the legal foundations for our claim. However, the Chancellor continued, the final day in the Galactic Court arrived with a tension that filled the massive chamber like electricity before a storm. Lee Dae-ho walked through the towering doors for the last time, followed by Dr. Park So-min and Captain Kim Tae-woo. The three humans moved with quiet confidence, but Lee could feel the weight of hundreds of alien eyes watching their every step. The alien representatives were already in their places, but the atmosphere was completely different from 5 days ago. Gone was the casual arrogance, the dismissive laughter, the sense that this was all just an amusing formality. General Vexler sat rigid in his armor, the clicking sounds completely stopped. High-resonance Tisara's crystal body flickered with dim, uncertain light. The nebuloid Commonwealth's representative had settled into a dark blue color that Dr. Park recognized as deep anxiety. Throughout the vast courtroom, aliens from dozens of species filled the gallery seats. Word had spread through Nexus Prime about the young species that had challenged 3 major civilizations with nothing but patience and paperwork. The audience was larger than it had been for any case in recent memory. Chancellor Crickstal entered with slow, deliberate steps. His 4 yellow eyes swept across the courtroom before settling on his bench. When he sat down, the sound echoed through the chamber like distant thunder. This court has completed its deliberation on the matter of territorial dispute 7749 Alpha. The Chancellor began, his voice carrying clearly to every corner of the massive room. The questions raised in this case are unprecedented in galactic legal history. He paused, accessing data displays that only he could see. For the first time, this court has been asked to consider territorial claims established through continuous remote observation by a species unable to physically travel to the claimed territory. Lee felt his heart begin to beat faster, but he kept his expression calm. Beside him, Dr. Park gripped her tablet tightly. Captain Kim sat at perfect attention, ready for whatever came next. The court has reviewed extensive evidence from all parties, Chancellor Crickstal continued. We have examined legal precedents dating back over 1,000 cycles. We have consulted with legal experts from 17 different species. The decision we announced today will become part of galactic law for generations to come. The silence in the courtroom was complete. Even the usual background hum of alien technology seemed muted. The court finds that the evidence presented by Earth is both unprecedented and legally sound. The Chancellor's voice grew stronger. Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Network represents a remarkable achievement in long-range observation technology. The systematic documentation of the Kepler 442 system over 127 years demonstrates a level of dedication and scientific rigor that this court has rarely seen. General Vexler's armor began to click softly, but he said, Nothing. However, the Chancellor continued, and Li's stomach tightened, this court must also consider the significant investments and developments made by other parties, even if those developments occurred after Earth's initial claim. High-resonance Tisara-S crystal body brightened slightly with hope. The Malthurian hegemony has presented evidence of extensive exploration and mapping activities. The Zephyrian Collective has demonstrated sophisticated biological research, with potential for ecological harmony. The Nebuloid Commonwealth has invested substantial resources in economic development. The Chancellor paused again, his four eyes moving slowly across each delegation. Nevertheless, the law is clear. Article 127, Section 4 of the Galactic Maritime Code states that territorial claims established under legitimate legal frameworks and maintained through continuous observation are valid, regardless of the claiming party's physical presence, provided no prior claims exist and proper procedures are followed. Li felt a surge of hope, but he forced himself to remain calm. The court finds that Earth's claim to the Kepler 442 system was properly established under human maritime law on March 15, 2157. This claim has been maintained through continuous observation and documentation for 127 years. During this entire period, no prior claims existed, and all subsequent activities by other parties occurred on territory already claimed by Earth. The courtroom began to buzz with quiet conversations, but Chancellor Krikstal's gavel brought immediate silence. Furthermore, the court finds that the other claimants failed to conduct proper research before entering the disputed system. Standard diplomatic protocol requires checking for existing territorial claims before beginning exploration or development activities. General Vexler stood up, his armor clanking. Your Honor, with respect, how could we have known about a claim made by a species we had never encountered? The Chancellor's expression was stern. General, ignorance of existing claims is not a valid legal defense. The Galactic Confederation maintains public records of all territorial claims filed by member species. Earth's claim was properly filed and registered upon their admission to the Confederation. Dr. Park leaned over to whisper to Li. They never bothered to check the records. The Chancellor continued his ruling. The court also notes with concern the environmental impact of unauthorized activities in the disputed system. Earth's long-term observations have documented significant ecological damage that would not have been detected by short-term surveys. In the Nebuloid Commonwealth's gas swirled anxiously, cycling through worried colors. Therefore, this court rules as follows. Chancellor Krikstal's voice boomed through the chamber. Territorial rights to system Kepler 442 are awarded to Earth, with full sovereignty and resource extraction privileges. The courtroom erupted. Aliens shouted in dozens of languages, their translation devices struggling to keep up. Some were angry, others seemed impressed, and a few were actually applauding, but the Chancellor was not finished. However, this court also recognizes the substantial investments made by other parties in good faith, even though those investments were made on claimed territory. Li's expression tightened. There was more coming. Therefore, this court orders the following compensation arrangements. The Nebuloid Commonwealth will be reimbursed for their mining equipment and infrastructure development costs by the Galactic Confederation Development Fund. The Zephyrian Collective will be granted research access to similar ecosystems and unclaimed systems. The Malthurian hegemony will receive priority consideration for exploration rights in newly discovered systems. General Vexler's red eyes burned, but he nodded stiffly. It was more than he had expected after the humans' legal victory. Additionally, the Chancellor added, this court strongly encourages Earth to consider joint development partnerships with other species, given the complexity of interstellar resource extraction and the potential benefits of cooperation. Li stood up. Your Honor, Earth appreciates the court's suggestion. We look forward to discussing partnership opportunities with interested parties. High-resonance Tisara's crystal body rang with a clear musical tone. Ambassador Li, would Earth consider allowing Zephyrian scientists to continue biological research in the system under human oversight? Lee looked at Dr. Park, who nodded slightly. High Resonance Tisara. We would be very interested in collaborative research, especially given your people's advanced biological sciences. However, all research would need to follow protocols designed to prevent the long-term genetic damage we observed. The Zephyrian's light patterns stabilized into something that looked like relief. We would welcome the opportunity to learn from your long-term observations. The Nebuloid Commonwealth's representative managed to speak through its swirling anxiety. What of our existing mining operations? Captain Kim answered. All current operations will be reviewed for environmental impact. Operations that meet Earth's environmental standards can continue under licensing agreements. Operations that cause ecological damage will be shut down and remediated. General Vexler approached the human table as the courtroom began to empty. The towering warrior looked down at Lee with something that might have been respect. Ambassador Lee, I must ask, how did a species so young execute such a sophisticated legal strategy? Lee stood up, no longer intimidated by the general's massive size. General, you made the same mistake that many have made when dealing with humans throughout our history. You assumed that being technologically primitive meant we were intellectually primitive. Dr. Park packed her tablet with satisfaction. Humanity has been practicing law, warfare, and diplomacy for thousands of years. We just finally got the technology to bring those skills to a galactic stage. But how did you know we would underestimate you? High Resonance Tisara asked, her crystal form singing softly. Captain Kim smiled. Because that's what everyone always does. Humans have been the underdogs for our entire history. We've learned to use that to our advantage. Lee picked up his simple briefcase. We may not have your ships or your advanced technology, but we have something else. We never stop watching, never stop planning, and never stop preparing for the moment we can act. As the humans prepared to leave the courtroom, Chancellor Krickstall called out to them. Ambassador Lee, this court is curious. What will Earth do with the Kepler 442 system now that ownership has been established? Lee turned back to face the massive Chancellor. Your Honor, we're going to do what humans have always done.